Their defense is a joke.
What it really comes down to is I would love to have either of them.
They don't have a prayer in their secondary. They have nothing.
So you're saying just don't draft Blunt?
I'm saying don't draft Blunt.
He was unbelievably efficient last year.
You know that they use their running backs in the passing game a ton.
I'm drafting him tonight.
That's Team Huevos. Huevos gigantes. Hey everyone, welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Sylvester, and I'm joined as always by Mike Tagliere and Kyle Yates. You can follow us all on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro, at Mike Tagliere NFL, and at Kyle Y. Yates. Kyle, what's going on, dude?
Oh man, not much. I mean, well, today is a fun day actually because I'm starting up a Dynasty startup in my Campus to Canton League. We're kicking off the rookie draft in our league, our Fantasy Pros Dynasty Invitational League, and then we get to do this. So man, this is a fun day for me.
Yeah, we're finally going to do some drafts. What's up, Tags?
Yeah, it's really weird that we're going to be doing this rookie draft right now because we're obviously literally in the middle of a slow draft for that Dynasty Rookie League, so we're going to kind of know each other's picks, but it is what it is. We
I mean, you don't even have a pick until the fourth round in that league, so it doesn't even matter.
I made trades, but it's a good day for me too. I'm trying to figure out a way that I can go outside and build a treehouse. Usually you'd build like a treehouse for your kids. I'm going to build one for me. I want to go out there with my laptop and just sit out there and enjoy some peace and quiet.
Nice. Tags is gonna watch highlights of the players that he traded for in the first round, right? You're gonna put up highlights for the players that you picked.
Yeah,
all I know is they weren't good enough to win that league, so it doesn't really matter what you traded for.
I was the champ the year before. Don't start with me, Bobby.
Well, here's the draft order today, okay? We're gonna go. What we're doing today is a rookie mock draft. So we're gonna mock 2 rounds. That's 24 picks. We're going to talk about all the players that should be drafted. It's only rookies, of course, and this is for Dynasty single quarterback leagues. Now, we'll talk about the implications for Superflex leagues when the quarterbacks come up. However, Yates, you've got the number 1 overall pick. Tags, you've got number 2. I've got number 3 because I had by far the best team in our actual Dynasty league. And then we'll circle back around, and Yates, you'll have 4, Tags 5, me 6. And I actually got the draft order right this time, didn't I, guys?
You did. And we're also going to be doing a third round, like speed round, where we're not going to give analysis, but we want to give you at least guys the players that we go through, the top 36 players.
Oh, sure. That way you guys can have 36 players. That sounds good. No one's going to complain about that, right? Except maybe Clinton.
Yeah, probably Clinton.
Clinton's producing the podcast today. He's awesome. Our whole production team is awesome. We never talk about them, but John, Clinton, Chris, those guys are powerhouses. So thank you to you guys for making the podcast go smoothly. Yates, you've got the first overall pick. Who are you going with, buddy?
Yeah, so I think the question here in debate is it Clyde Edwards-Helaire after seeing him land in Kansas City with that number 32 overall pick in the actual NFL draft? Obviously, him landing in a very, very high-powered offense is really enticing. When I did my Dynasty big board, which you can actually find at fantasypros.com now, it'll be up there on the main page. When I did that, I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 6, mainly because in my grading scale, he still stayed down my draft board a little bit after I factored in landing spot grades. Jonathan Taylor and Deandre Swift had extremely high grades for me, so they stayed towards the top. You're talking about Jonathan Taylor now, the highest graded running back for me personally, behind the best offensive line. You have a quarterback who can still air it out, who it still poses some threat to air it out downfield. So for me, this pick is between Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor. Even though I do have Clyde Edwards-Helaire at number 6 overall in my Dynasty big board, he's kind of still in that same tier. I do not care if you take him at the 101. All 3 of these running backs are really, landing in great spots. So I'm going to throw a little curveball here, and because I think that you're going to run into a lot of leagues that are going to have Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the 101.
Sure.
In this, I want to throw a little bit of a curveball and see what it looks like, what it plays out like throughout the rest of the draft. I'm going to take Jonathan Taylor here at the 101, the Indianapolis Colts running back. He's their future. He's their workhorse back. I think he's going to be in a great situation.
Tags, this year is so interesting to me in Dynasty drafts, right? Because you've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I don't think anyone would argue is the top rookie in redraft leagues. Mm-hmm. But in Dynasty leagues, he's right. I mean, Jonathan Taylor lands with the best offensive line, and maybe he doesn't immediately get all the touches because of Marlon Mack, but I also think he's the better running back than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, I've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my 101, and I typically go wide receiver here just because they're going to be durable for, 6, 8 years? They're going to be useful for that long. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jonathan Taylor, Deandre Swift, they might flame out in 2 or 3 years. Most running backs do.
It's very possible, and I disagree with you guys in regards to this whole thing. I think Edwards-Helaire is the better pick in redraft, and I believe he's the better pick in Dynasty for a couple of reasons. Obviously, he's very, very involved in the passing game. The Colts do have Nyheim Hines there that they're going to use in the passing game. They're not going to feature him or anything like that, but he is going to steal a lot of that third down work. I view Jonathan Taylor as someone like Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has obviously been fantastic the last couple of years, but you see his overall numbers. He's not going to win you a fantasy championship because he's not involved heavily in the passing game, especially when they added Kareem Hunt to the offense. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the offense. They used a first round pick on him. The reason you have to like him a little bit more.
Patrick Mahomes is kind of the offense.
well, right. But I'm saying is you can't focus on Edwards-Helaire. A lot of people said that he succeeded at LSU because of Joe Burrow and because of the offense. Well, now he goes to an offense that's even better. And knowing that they wanted him, knowing that Andy Reid has compared him, actually said that he looks better than Brian Westbrook on film. That's crazy. And on top of that, you get a 5th-year option, so you have an automatic first-year or 5-year deal with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's rare to find for running backs, and I've found myself with the running back position being devalued more and more in football, in the actual NFL. I'm finding myself moving my rankings in Dynasty based on contracts and where these players are at. Guys like Kenyon Drake, if he had signed a 3-year deal, I'd be willing to move him into my top 8 running backs, maybe even top 6. But he's only on that 1-year deal, so you have to be hesitant. Guys like Leonard Fournette, for example, he's in the final year of his deal right now. We have zero clue. I would imagine he's going to get a contract from someone, but he may not wind up as the workhorse, and that's going to hurt. Jonathan Taylor's coming out of Wisconsin, massive workload, and I think that was the biggest concern on Taylor coming out, was that he's been used and abused, and we just don't know how he's going to hold up
the Colts
to a
like
giant
to do
workload.
that with their running backs, though. Andy Reid doesn't.
Well, I disagree with that. I think that he didn't last year, and I think the year before there were some injuries that forced him to do a lot of these things.
But look back at Jamal Charles. When did he ever get 17 touches per game?
Well,
look back at Brian Westbrook. It took him 5 years to get 250 touches in a season.
Lesean McCoy was the only other running back that Andy Reid ever used a first-round pick on, and Lesean McCoy was a workhorse for Andy Reid. Brian Westbrook, once he found out who Brian Westbrook was, and he obviously put him in that role. Jamal Charles never needed 17 touches per game because he was averaging 6 yards per carry.
Sure.
I mean, Jamal Charles was so fun to watch, and I think people forget just how good he was. But Edwards-Helaire, with the way that the NFL is shaping up today, I don't even care if he carries the ball 15 times. If he gets 6-7 receptions a game, it's like a Christian McCaffrey type impact. I've actually, in terms of Dynasty altogether, I've moved Edwards-Helaire is to my number 8 running back overall in Dynasty. I love him. There's no reason not to. I have no issue with Jonathan Taylor either. He's my 102, but I think it's safe to say I'm taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire here.
So you mentioned LeSean McCoy going in the first. I'm going to say this really quick, Yates. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
LeSean McCoy went in the first. How many touches did he get as a rookie, Tags?
I don't know.
195. Is that what's going to happen to Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I'm a little nervous, man.
195 touches is nothing to scoff at as a rookie.
It's not bad at all. But Jonathan Taylor's going to get more than that.
He might. I mean, he's going to have more. He's going to have carries. Like I said, he's like the Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb is not even going to go in the first round of redraft leagues. So why should we be considering him like as a shoe-in as the 101? I do think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably going to be a second round pick. Maybe if he falls into the third round, it's going to be an absolute steal. But I think by the time the NFL it rolls around, and for people out there, I just want to make a point. Darwin Thompson, I can't tell you how many people on my timeline have popped up. I'm not falling for this crap again, Tags. Darwin Thompson last year, he looked fantastic in the preseason, and then they didn't use him at all. I'm like, we're comparing apples and oranges. It's a 6th round pick, guys. Like 6th round picks on average over the last 7 years of research that I've done, they average 30 touches per year. Yeah. First round picks, they average, I think it's 240 something touches. There's zero reason that you should avoid. You should definitely not be moving off from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But again, the 101, 102, we know it's going to be those two guys.
So I completely. Sorry, go ahead.
You're good, buddy. You're good. No, I was just going to say, I really do not have much of a difference here or preference as far as who you take at the 101, right? Sure. I think Jonathan Taylor and Tags, you mentioned it. Jonathan Taylor's your 102. If you see if you have the 101 and you want to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I totally get it. I think the thing that I want to mention here, though, Tags, and I want to get your opinion on two things. So one is, does the format that you're playing in impact this at all? Because we've established that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not going to see the amount of carries that Jonathan Taylor will. Mm-hmm. I think Jonathan Taylor is a shoe-in for 250 carries. I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire...
250 carries?
Yes. I think 240 around that range. I think he's going to get a ton of work. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if you're talking about him, I think he might see over 200. I think they still want to see Damian Williams involved. Now, the difference is that Jonathan Taylor is probably going to see like 30 total targets on the season. Clyde Edwards-Helaire might see 100, right? So does the format that we're playing in impact this at all as to where you would go? If you're still playing in a standard, right, no PPR value at all, would that lead you to go Jonathan Taylor? Or, if you're playing in a half or full PPR, would you go Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Yeah,
does that impact it at all?
It would. If it's standard, I would definitely say that they're almost neck and neck for me.
Okay.
Because, Taylor, it's more about the touchdowns. And I actually agree with you in the fact that I'm doing my top 50 rookie rankings right now, and I think that Taylor's going to run for 1,200 yards in year one. I think that's a real thing. Probably going to score some touchdowns. So I do like him, but again, the lack of passing down work, and the only leagues that I play in now are half PPR or full PPR, and when you get into those formats, those receptions matter an awful lot. So again, it comes down to like Marlon Mack played, he had 247 carries last year. He only received 17 targets because they used Nyheim Hines in that role, and obviously Paris Campbell's kind of like a utility blade that they can move around. So that's my only concern with Taylor. But again, I think it's safe to say that if you're wherever you're at in the draft, you're not choosing. It's basically whatever if you're at 102. You're picking whatever the other guy leaves for you.
So I don't want to spend a ton more time on this. I don't want to spend a ton more time on this. So I just wanted to mention too, really quick, that like the difference between Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor, right, Tags? I heard you mention that quite a bit. Like the difference is that Nick Chubb is not running behind the best offensive line in football. Right. Like Nick Chubb has been running behind one of the worst offensive lines in football over the past few years. So I think if Nick Chubb were running behind the Indianapolis line, we would be talking about him as a first-round redraft running back. Okay, I'm done.
No, Chubb, if he was behind the Colts offensive line, I'd take him 102 behind McCaffrey, guys. He was amazing. He had 1,500 rushing yards behind the Browns offensive line last year. You mentioned that he's a lock, Jonathan Taylor, for 250 attempts. Only 8 guys did that last year. You talked about 1,200 yards. Only 6 guys did that last year. One of them was Lamar Jackson, by the way. How weird is that?
Marlon Mack had 247 in 14 games.
That's true. That's true. I just don't know if it's going to be like a Taylor just takes over Mack's role and Mack goes away. I think it's going to be like 60-40.
Mack's still going to get some carries. I do believe that. But yeah, I mean, I think the point's mute here. I think we can move on to the 103. And this is where things get curious. And I'm curious where Bobby's going to go.
I don't know, man. I think this one's obvious. Like, this is the easiest pick. Between Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor in Dynasty, that's tough. Yep. At 103, it's just Deandre Swift, right, Yates?
I think you definitely can go there, and I think that you have to look at the long-term outlook when you're drafting Deandre Swift. That I don't think Deandre Swift, like right now, I have Deandre Swift statted out for 215 total carries and Kerryon Johnson with 150, right? So this isn't going to be a huge split in this backfield, but Deandre Swift is going to be the lead back, and I think they're going to move Kerryon Johnson to more of a satellite pass-catching role. So, but long-term, Kerryon Johnson coming up on the end of his contract this year or next year, I can't remember off the top of my head, Deandre Swift's going to be the guy. So I think that, these wide receivers are going to take a little bit longer to hit their true ceiling. So I think you should be taking the safe thing here. Take Deandre Swift, who you're going to get production out of year one, and I think he's the pick here at 103.
In Dynasty Leagues, guys, I always want to win my league right away because you never know when this Dynasty League's going to crumble, and you can always get good veteran players like a Chris Carson for super cheap because everyone wants to rebuild their teams and get those draft picks and make the team their own. Go win this year. DeAndre Swift is going to help you win this year. The wide receivers, not so much.
I don't know if I believe that, though. I mean, even if you look at Kerryon in terms of what he's done with Detroit, they haven't used him a whole lot in the passing game. Danny Amendola is still there, and Kerryon's still there. Kerryon, by his own right, is a solid running back. It's just he's struggled to stay on the field. I'm not saying that he is DeAndre Swift, but I was also not someone that was like DeAndre Swift is the greatest running back ever. I think he's really good at a lot of things, and I think he's a very solid NFL running back. If Kerryon Johnson wasn't there, I'd say, DeAndre Swift should be the number 3 pick. But knowing that there's some uncertainty about his workload and what Kerryon Johnson's actually going to get, which he will get some touches, I'm taking Jerry Judy at number 3, guys. I mean, that's where I would go at 3 because I mean it's a for sure
have said
talent.
That because now Yates is going to snipe you at 104.
Well, Yates is going to take who he wants. Like we all do our own rankings, we all have our opinions. But what I'm saying is that Swift, I don't feel is a sure thing. I mean, those top 2 running backs, those are sure things. They're the starters. We're not worried about those guys.
Swift's the best out of those 3, though. Like he's got to get the job.
I think Kerryon Johnson is good, and I feel like the Lions felt he was good. I just feel like they're worried about his stability, and they've always been kind of looking to grab another running back, whether it be LeGarrette Blount, C.J. Anderson, now him. And the offensive line, I don't know if Detroit's offensive line is a strength. I mean, they lost Graham Glasgow this offseason. They replaced him with Jonah Jackson and Logan Stenberg, 2 rookies, but we don't know how that's going to pan out. So it's possible that the interior of that offensive line just isn't great. So,
I think it's likely, yeah.
I wouldn't take Swift at 3, is what I'm saying.
Okay. So, Yates, who are you taking at 104 then?
Yeah, I'm going to take the next best player on my overall big board. That is Jerry Judy.
Okay.
He was going to be my pick here all along. So Jerry Judy in Denver with this offense, it's a question mark of his true year one impact, right? Where you're looking at them adding KJ Hamler. I don't think KJ Hamler is going to be a target hog in this offense by any means. I don't think he's going to be the guy who comes onto the field in 3 wide receiver sets and he's the guy who you get the ball to. I think he's going to be the guy who is able to stretch the field from the slot position. We saw him do this at Penn State where he's running deep fades and he's stretching the field. He comes onto the field and the defense now has to pay attention to him and slide coverage. So now you're leaving a ton of one-on-one opportunities for both Courtland Sutton and Jerry Judy.
Sure.
The only question with this is going to be, one, can Drew Lock step up, right? Can Drew Lock continue his ascension? And Denver is doing everything they can to make sure that happens. But can he truly do that? And then the second is, how many times are this offense actually going to pass the ball? Like, what are the actual target opportunities here for Jerry Judy? I don't have clarity on that yet. I don't know if they're going to necessarily deviate from what they've done in years past. I think Jerry Judy, though, from his talent perspective, is worthy of the number 4 overall pick here in Dynasty leagues.
That's what I would have taken as well. We already know Tags agrees. So, Tags, who are you going with at 105?
It'd be CeeDee Lamb, Dallas wide receiver. And, when this pick happened, Yates and I were doing the live stream, and it was difficult for me to, grasp what was going on because it's why? I mean, I knew they had a need there, but the more I sat back and looked at it, I looked at Michael Gallup, Randall Cobb last year. Those guys combined for 195 targets between the two of them, and that's with 3 games missed with them. So if they had played all 16 games, we're probably looking at 210 targets, something like that between the two, and that's more than enough to go around for Gallup and CeeDee Lamb. And the reason this is that it's like it is because they really don't target Amari Cooper like a true number 1 receiver. He played all 16 games last year, 119 targets. Number 1 receivers are getting 140, 150. And I don't think this is going to go up for Amari. I actually think this hurts Amari Cooper in terms of his target share. And it may even drop down to that 110, 115 range, which is still fine. He's still going to produce here and there. He's going to be an inconsistent fantasy option. But CeeDee Lamb is a guy that I felt like the best case scenario for him was to come in as a number 2 in an offense and kind of develop into a player because I still think his body has some growing to do. And with where they drafted him, I do believe he's going to make his way into that number 2 spot, and Michael Gallup would be essentially the 3rd wide receiver when they go 3 wide. I can project him for 80, 90 targets in year 1, which means I don't even have to wait for so much development, and I'm okay with that. And CeeDee Lamb's development is, we've heard DeAndre Hopkins as a comparison for him. I'm not willing to say that, but sure. he can be a very solid player.
Same player, yeah.
Getting him at 105, I'm definitely not mad about that.
Yeah, is that who you would have taken as well, Yates?
It would have been between Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb there. I think both are walking into really good opportunities. I think Dallas, if we're projecting the type of passing volume that they had last year, or at least somewhat similar, CeeDee Lamb hitting 90 targets,
they're going to throw 130 more times than the Vikings.
Yeah, they're going to be passing the ball a ton, but then the question becomes, do you want the 3rd or 2nd option in that passing, attack behind, even guys like Ezekiel Elliott, because Zeke sees a ton of targets in the passing game too, or do you want the second target in Minnesota's offense where you have no one in competition, essentially no one behind him, so. I think Justin Jefferson is going to see a ton of targets in year 1. CeeDee Lamb in this Dallas offense playing in the slot, if that's where we're assuming that he's going to go. It's a beautiful fit, and I think he can have a year 1 impact.
So I want to ask you guys this, okay? So where is your highest? This is for redraft. I know this is a Dynasty podcast, but for redraft, where are you ranking your highest rookie wide receiver? Because I can't get one inside the top 35. I've got Justin Jefferson at 38.
I have Dynasty, Jefferson at startup?
No, not Dynasty, redraft, just for 2020.
Oh, okay. Let me take a look at that.
In redraft leagues, I have Justin Jefferson at 27. But there's
27, okay.
Yeah, but you're looking at, I grade this out based on projected point totals.
Sure.
You take away 1 touchdown from Justin Jefferson, he slides down into the 30s. So
Sure, okay. My point is, it's always hard to rank these rookies in the top 35, and then every single year, some rookie wide receiver finishes in the top 20, and usually it's 2 of them in the top 15. And how does that happen? It happens when players ahead of them in the depth chart get injured. If Adam Thielen, who seems to be injury prone at this point, gets hurt, Justin Jefferson is going to smash. If Amari Cooper, who we know has had a lot of foot problems, gets hurt, CeeDee Lamb could be a superstar in year one. You remember when Mike Evans took over for the Buccaneers in year one in the second half? That could happen with CeeDee Lamb. So I wouldn't just say, okay, well, Amari Cooper's ahead of him. I don't want to draft CeeDee Lamb in the top 5. No, the guy is a stud. He's going to find his way into targets one way or the other, whether it happens this year or in the future. And that's why I'm now taking him over Justin Jefferson. I had Justin Jefferson initially as my number 1 wide receiver in Dynasty Leagues just because he immediately steps into that number 2 wide receiver role, replacing Stephon Diggs, but they're not going to throw the ball as much. He's not as talented as Judy or Lamb. I'm taking Justin Jefferson, wide receiver out of Minnesota at 106, but I've been moving him down my board a little bit. I think that we need to chill on the landing spots a little bit for Dynasty because it's not going to be the case for their entire career.
So are you taking Jefferson at 106 then?
Yeah, I am. Yep.
Okay, so I want to address this. The only reason I'm going to bring up Jefferson is obviously Yates. You know, we talked a lot throughout the draft process and how we both like Jefferson. And I did feel like he was a good fit for Minnesota from a pure football standpoint. I don't love it for fantasy, though. I mean, this is a team last year. They targeted their wide receivers 209 times. I just got done saying that Randall Cobb and Michael Gallup, if they had played 16 games, they would have been right around that mark. And it's not a team that is looking to throw the ball a whole lot. I mean, Cousins is that game manager. It worked better that way. You know, Dalvin Cook is going to be involved in the passing game. I think they threw the ball under 460 times last year, maybe 465, something like that. So I don't know where these targets come from. Irv Smith's going to continue to develop into his second year in the league. I really do like Justin Jefferson, but I also worry about the fact that Adam Thielen missed half the year last year, and Stephon Diggs ended the season with 94 targets. I don't see anything. There's nothing in the realm of possibilities where I can see Justin Jefferson getting up to 80, 85 targets this year. I just don't see it with this offense, and that's where it's like a little difficult.
Sure.
I mean, Adam Thielen, 30 years old, with some back problems, that's definitely something that he could come into. But even then, we look back at Stephon Diggs last year, 94 targets even when Thielen was down, with an established veteran that can get open at any level of the field. So that's my issue with Jefferson but I have no issue with where you're taking him. I mean, I have him right around there.
Yeah, I think it's important. You know, you mentioned the 204 targets or whatever to the wide receiver position last year. I mean, it is important to remember that Adam Thielen was out for the majority of the year last year. And even when he did play, he wasn't fully healthy, right? Yeah. You know, we can remember that from playing fantasy football last year, where it was super frustrating and playing this game of trying to figure out if you should play Adam Thielen. I think there were chemistry issues with Stephon Diggs and Kirk Cousins, so I don't know if Kirk Cousins was necessarily like super intent on throwing the ball to him every single time.
He's allergic to good players.
You know, we can of course dive into that, which I think could be a podcast in and of itself. But you know, I just think that
I like
Jefferson.
Kirk Cousins. I'll fight everyone on this.
I mean, Jefferson from a opportunity perspective, he's walking into one of the best opportunities. Yeah. He's just going to be trying to figure out, okay, where do the targets actually go?
All right, Tags. Actually, it's Yates' pick. Yates, 7th overall pick in a Dynasty rookie draft. Jefferson, Swift, Taylor, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Judy, and Lamb are all off the board. Who are you taking?
Yeah, so this is the part where my team needs come into play, right? I think from 1 through 6, you're kind of looking at, okay, I'm just taking the best overall players, and I'll figure it all out later. Sure. This is where you start to analyze your roster and say, okay, do I need a wide receiver or do I need a running back, right? Do I only have two competent starters at running back on my roster? You know, so I think the guys that are in consideration for me here are J.K. Dobbins out of Baltimore, Michael Pittman Jr. in Indianapolis, and Henry Ruggs in Las Vegas. So those are the 3 guys that I'm looking at right here, and I'm going to say like my team needs will determine what I actually draft here. So if I need a running back, I'll take J.K. Dobbins because I do think that he's going to see the field in year 1. But then you're talking about next year where the Ravens have an out in Mark Ingram's contract for like 1.3, right? For like $1.3 million dead cap. Like J.K. Dobbins could be the RB1 in all of fantasy football in 2 or 3 years. Like I don't know necessarily want to say that I want to like project that fully, but he could be, right? So then Michael Pittman Jr., if I need a bona fide wide receiver 1 for my dynasty team, a guy who's going to command a ton of targets and who can, you know, be a steady contributor, then I'll go with Michael Pittman Jr. If I
take him over Ruggs.
This is where I was going to say, if
Okay.
I need a spark plug for my offense, a wide receiver 3, right? I've got like 2 great starters in my wide receiver 1 and 2 spots. I need that guy who can be a boom play in my lineup every single week. I'll draft Henry Ruggs. So that's kind of my thought process here. I'm going to go with Michael Pittman Jr. here at the 1-7 though, because I think that he is walking into an amazing situation. You're looking at 2021. T.Y. Hilton is most likely not returning to that team. I think Pittman is in an amazing situation to be the wide receiver 1. Over 100 targets in year 1, I wouldn't be shocked.
And the Colts came out and said they see him as a Michael Thomas tags.
I mean, Michael Thomas is very bold.
It is. Yeah.
I'm not willing to say
He's
that.
a great football player, though.
I could see a Vincent Jackson type, and that's the one where I think I go back to. And, knowing that Phillip Rivers is willing to trust his wide recievers in one-on-one situations, especially big-bodied ones, it's a good landing spot. And I think that he has a chance to be one of the top performers in year 1. So I with my pick right after that, though, that 108, I'm going to go with another guy he talked about, and that's Henry Ruggs.
Sure.
Just the fact that, when you're drafted at number 12 overall, you're going to get every opportunity in the world to succeed. And I have to think that the Raiders drafted him with some sort of plan in place as to how they were going to use him. The question is, can they actually do it? I don't know. But if they don't do it, are they going to be there next year? Is John Gruden the coach next year? I don't know. Greg Olson, is he the coordinator? Do they bring in someone younger? Someone saying, hey, look at all these weapons we have. We need someone to put them to use. So even, long term, it could get better for Henry Ruggs. So to get him at 108, it makes a whole lot of sense for me. The running backs here, there are some question marks. And again, as Yates said, it really does depend on what your team needs. But in a vacuum, I'm going to go with Ruggs.
3 times in a row, Tags, you've taken my guy. And here's the thing. I don't love Ruggs on tape. He didn't really produce all that well at Alabama. Like, he was extraordinarily efficient. He scored a lot of touchdowns like Will Fuller. You know what I mean? But I didn't really see it as a great pick at number 12. But for the Raiders, it does make sense. And did you hear what Gruden said about Ruggs, how he plans on using him? The same exact way he was planning on using Antonio Brown last year.
Well, that's not going to work.
Oh, man.
That's not going to work. I mean, if that's the way that they're planning on using this, it's not going to work. Then they should have drafted Jerry Judy.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, but I'm saying if he's got big plans for Ruggs, I'm taking him at 108 all day, baby. I would have taken him over Pittman, too. Now, I like Pittman. I'm not making fun of the pick whatsoever, Yates. I think that you're on fire, but I also want to thank you guys for leaving J.K. Dobbins on the board for me at 109. I will gladly scoop him up. We already talked about him quite a bit, too. Tex, do you want to talk on Dobbins at all?
I mean, Dobbins, I think you guys already touched it on the fact that he'll get some carries this year. But I just wonder what they actually want to do in Baltimore because, they drafted Justice Hill last year and he played well when he was on the field. I mean, from what we did see,
yeah. But
it's clear that they don't view him as the Mark Ingram type that's going to walk in and get a bunch of carries. They tendered Gus Edwards. They still have Mark Ingram. So I'm guessing Edwards might get the axe here. I don't know what they're going to do with that. I don't know what the penalty would be for letting him go. But even going into next year, let's pretend that they do move on from Ingram. I don't. It's almost like the Ingram thing where it's like they didn't give him more than like 15 carries like any single week. And that could be a Dobbins thing where it's like they cut him off and they say we're going to mix in these other 2 guys. And then you have Lamar Jackson who has some serious like regression when it comes to rushing touchdowns. I understand that he's going to have regression in the passing game, but he's going to score more rushing touchdowns in 2020.
So positive regression for rushing touchdowns. Positive regression
yeah.
Negative for the passing, yep.
Right. So, I mean, that's where me with Dobbins is like, I don't know if he's ever an 18 touch per game back. I don't think that they're going to use him like that. And knowing that there's question marks about it, it's enough for me to take some wide receivers that have guaranteed roles ahead of them.
Sure. All right. So we're on to pick 110. Yates, this is yours.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to play out a scenario here that I think could happen in your leagues. And if you're a QB needy team, I think you need to be looking at Joe Burrow in the first round.
Agreed.
I think last year in a couple home leagues, I saw Kyler Murray. In 1 QB leagues, I saw Kyler Murray go with a 1.7, 1.6, right? Like people were taking him based on his rushing upside. So I think that even in a 1 QB league, you're kind of gambling with value here, but with Joe Burrow, I think he's walking into, and I've talked about this, I think he's walking into one of the best situations for a rookie quarterback potentially that we've ever seen. I mean, he's walking into guys like AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Joe Mixon, now T. Higgins as well. So I think that he's walking into an amazing situation that he's going to be able to produce in year 1. Now,
and he has to throw the ball a ton because they're going to be playing from behind.
Right. Like, I think that defense took some steps forward in the draft, but I don't think they're there yet, right? They're still going to be needing to do some work on that defense to get to the level where they can feel comfortable taking away some of that work from Joe Burrow. So I think Burrow has a really good chance to finish within the top 15 quarterbacks in redraft leagues in year one, which is kind of, rare for a rookie quarterback. I think Burrow here at the 110 is a good pick for a QB needy team.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I was going to grab him at 112 if he was available. Now, there's one other player I still have on my board. I know Tags is going to take him, though.
Jalen Reagor, wide receiver of Philadelphia.
No, whoa, he wasn't in my top 2.
Yes, so if you guys have noticed anything from where we're going, it's like I prefer to take running backs with guaranteed workloads at the top, and if I get value, if some guys fall to me, I'll take them. But right now, it's about wide receivers that are going to be in the league for a long time, and Jalen Reagor has fallen into a spot where he's going to play right away. He's going to produce. He plays along two guys that might not stay on the field. Like Deshaun Jackson's up there in age. He's towards the end. Alshon Jeffrey's a guy that still has cut potential considering how many wide receivers they added.
They're trying to trade him.
But yeah, Reagor is somebody that he can produce in year one. He's going to be around for a long time. He's tied to either Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts, so it's a good situation for him there. Jalen Reagor was someone that fell after the combine because he added some weight and it hurt his numbers, but overall, this is a solid player. He plays extremely fast. I think he fits in with the offense. And now, granted, he's not. We talked about it with Jeff Ratcliffe yesterday. He's not Deshaun Jackson. He's not that player, but he can do a lot of the things when it comes to stretching the field. But he can make yards after the catch. He can be used in the slot if you want him to, because he does have a bit bigger build. Again, he went over 200 pounds for the combine, and that was a detriment to his game. So I guess it just depends on what they want him to do in the offense. But Reagor being drafted there to them at 21 overall in front of Justin Jefferson, it kind of says how much they value that player.
So here's what I'm going to do at 112. I'm going to take the better wide receiver in a better situation. It's Denzel Mims. What do you think, Yates? You're the tiebreaker. Who would you rather have in Dynasty? Denzel Mims with the Jets or Jalen Reagor with the Eagles?
Oh, man.
You're picking your best friend right here, by the way.
Out of year one, or out of the round one, I probably would have said Jalen Reagor, but then looking at what the Eagles did in the later rounds of the draft, it's super confusing. John Hightower, you trade for Marquise Goodwin, you draft Quez Watkins, which are all like the same type of player, and where I was projecting Jalen Reagor to play. So I don't know if Jalen Reagor is going to have necessarily a huge year one as from a fantasy perspective, but his long-term outlook, I was projecting him to fill in for Deshaun Jackson. So I think he can be a little bit more, they can scheme him some more touches. If we're talking about what you need year one, if you are, and we're back at the end of this is the 112, right?
Yeah. I just picked 112, so you'll be at 201.
Yeah, so if we're here at this point, then you're most likely a team that is ready to contribute or ready to go compete for another title next year. So Denzel Mims is going to see all the targets he can handle. My word, this kid is going to see a ton of targets. So I think if you need year one production, Mims would probably be the way that I would go. Otherwise, Reagor, I think is right there with him though.
I'm always about the year one production in Dynasty League, so I'm going Mims. Now we're on to the second round. Who are you starting us off with here, Yates?
Yeah, I'm going to take Keyshawn Vaughn. This is a very easy pick for me. I think he could even go higher than this in your rookie drafts. Keyshawn Vaughn landing in Tampa Bay, hand-selected by Bruce Arians and this coaching staff. He's an excellent pass catcher out of the backfield, excellent in pass protection. These are two traits that Bruce Arians loves. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that he's going to take on the David Johnson role, right, that we saw in 2017. I don't think that I'm not projecting that by any means, but Keyshawn Vaughn is an excellent runner between the tackles. He's someone who I really, really liked from a tape perspective. He lands in an amazing situation. And you now have Ronald Jones still going to be involved. I don't think that is really in question. I don't think Ronald Jones is going to go away. But even if he is, Keyshawn Vaughn is going to see enough work in the passing game that he's going to be valuable for fantasy football. So to get him here at the 201 is a great spot for him.
Agree. Totally agree. Tags, is that who you were going to take?
No, I was actually going to take Cam Akers. Okay. And Cam Akers is someone that I actually thought I was much lower on him than the consensus, but doing this draft with you guys, it feels like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I have him as the number 10 overall player on my board, just because, and again, this is something we talked about with Jeff yesterday, and this was something I was struggling with because Daryl Henderson is someone they drafted last year. They traded up in the third round to get him with Todd Gurley on the roster, and you're like, why would they do this unless they're planning on, involving him? They didn't involve him, but then Gurley's, he's cut. They're talking about we're moving away from the one back system. We're going to go with two backs. And all of a sudden, it's like now they go in the second round with their first pick in the second round because they had multiple ones in the second.
Yeah.
And they take Akers there, which tells you they obviously feel like they were not strong enough at the position. They interviewed more running backs than all but one team in the draft process. So, to get Cam Akers there in the second round, it kind of says we're using him in that early down role. And I could see Daryl Henderson being someone that, maybe is mixed in 8 to 12 touches per game, but you have Akers in that big, that early down role and a guy that can get it done on the goal line. So I think Cam Akers, I would take him over Keyshawn Vaughn. I understand the thought process on Vaughn. I really do, because I think they're in similar tiers. But Akers is someone I moved up just a little bit after thinking about what Jeff said on the podcast yesterday, and the fact that, they do want someone bigger. And Daryl Henderson, he's been on the roster. They know what, it's like when you draft a player, sometimes you don't know exactly what you're getting. But now that they've had him on the roster for a full year, they had him on the practice squad and all those things, like practicing with the team, they know exactly the player he is. And they obviously said, we don't feel like he's the answer that can handle it on all three downs, because there are running backs out there in free agency that you can kind of pick up off the street, like Devonta Freeman, to fill a role if you need him to. But they obviously felt that they needed to spend a second round pick, which it might be a mistake, but at the same time, second round draft equity equals opportunity.
Here's the thing about Keyshawn Vaughn, is both Yates and I, before the draft, graded Vaughn over Cam Akers. Now, I like Cam Akers. I just really like Keyshawn Vaughn. And then he landed in a better spot, too. Like, the Rams have the second worst offensive line in all of football. Mm-hmm. And they didn't do anything to improve it. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not very excited about Akers. Like, what is his ceiling this year? Can he be an RB2? I don't know.
Yeah, this year, I'm not going to say that I would draft him as an RB2. I think
I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to draft Akers this year, I think you should be, I don't know where you guys have him ranked, but I have him right around that RB30 territory. So a middling RB3 is someone that could have a bigger role, because I don't think Daryl Henderson's going away at all. I don't. But as I was talked about in the podcast yesterday, is that Jeff took Akers, I think, with a 5th round pick in a redraft best ball format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just don't see the upside. Yates, are you with me? Do you think Akers can be an RB2?
I think that entire offense goes as Jared Goff goes. And so if
Jared Goff goes as the offensive line goes. He's a train wreck.
And Jared Goff goes as the offensive line goes. Exactly. So it's like if you are, and we talked about this on the draft recap, so I don't need episode, so I don't need to rehash that. But I think when I was scouting Cam Akers, I was saying that I think he works best when he's in space. This is not a guy who has great vision between the tackles. He was behind an offensive line that was atrocious at Florida State last year, but he constantly displayed poor decision-making as far as where he was going with the football behind the line of scrimmage. And he constantly tried to bounce things outside. I think he's an excellent pass catcher. I think he's an excellent athlete. So if their philosophy, and this is what I'm projecting forward until we get more clarity, is that they're going to use Daryl Henderson as kind of their main back on first and second downs. Of course, Cam Akers will get some work in there, but then Cam Akers will come onto the field and be their pass catching back, one that they can get out in space and let him create, because once he's in space and he sees some open field, he's lethal in the open field.
So I'll tell you what, guys, I've got the 15th overall pick here. I think there is a clear top 14. And then after that, the next 5 guys are all virtually the same. I'm having a really hard time between one guy and another guy, but I think the other one will be there for me in 3 picks. If I was picking at 15, I would pick the guy that I'm going to take at 18, but he's still going to be there. So I'm going to save him. I'm going to take Tua right here at 203. They've really built up that offensive line. I think he's got some decent weapons. They're probably going to get another solid one next year to add to Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. Mike Gesicki's coming on. They got Matt Breida who they can pass to. I don't love taking a quarterback in a single QB league, but I think Tua will be a QB1 for a long time in the NFL, so I don't mind taking him in the second round.
You're going to
have to...
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Tex.
No, yeah, I have him as a second round player, so I don't think it's crazy. There's a few players that I'd definitely take ahead of him here, but the reason that he's falling further in drafts than he typically would have, because he would have been an early second round pick, kind of around where you took him, but the injury concerns for me dial him back just a little bit to where there's other guys on the board that we could talk about. I don't have an issue with it, though. I mean, the question becomes, where do you take this guy in a super flex league? Because everybody knows that Burrow is probably the number 1 pick in a super flex league, I mean, depending on your roster, but how do we value someone like Tua in in a 2-quarterback format.
I'm
Yates,
taking him
where would you take
102 behind Burrow. What do you
Oh,
think,
you
Yates?
would? You take him over
Yeah.
Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor?
I would. In Superflex, yeah.
Yeah, that's right where I'm at too. I think you kind of have to risk it, especially with, Superflex and how many quarterbacks we saw get injured last year, and, the depth. If you don't have depth in a Superflex league, like, you're screwed.
Right.
Like we saw that even in our Dynasty league where some
Can't
of these
pick anybody
amazing
up.
rosters, there's just no one on the waiver wire. And so, or people who are on the waiver wire, you really are not feeling great about picking up. So it's like, I think you kind of have to take that risk with Tua, because his upside is incredible. And, Bobby mentioned it. He could be in the league for a very long time and performing at a very high level. Mm-hmm. But I think, you have to pull the trigger there at the 102.
All right, so Yates, what are you doing at the 16th overall pick, 204?
Yeah, so I'm going to bet on the long-term upside here of T. Higgins. If this is a roster here that I can afford to let T. Higgins sit for a year, I'm going to do it, because his upside, I think this move, picking him at number 33 overall in the NFL draft, signals that the Bengals are not going to be re-signing A.J. Green.
Correct.
Now, the question becomes, do they move A.J. Green prior to the start of the season? If they do, T. Higgins is going to skyrocket up my Dynasty rookie board, right? But right now, we have to project that they franchise tagged A.J. Green. He's going to be behind T. Higgins is going to be behind him now, because they play that similar role, right? You're not going to take off John Ross off the field or Tyler Boyd to put T. Higgins there, right? John Ross has his role, Tyler Boyd has his role. So this is more so of looking at next year and grabbing T. Higgins, who could be a top 24 wide receiver with Joe Burrow in 2021, getting him at a little bit of a discount here in your Dynasty rookie drafts, because there's uncertainty at the role above him. So right now, if you're doing your Dynasty rookie drafts, getting T. Higgins in the second round, it would be incredible. And then you're kind of like crossing your fingers, hoping that A.J. Green gets traded, so that way that stock skyrockets.
Now, if he gets traded, if A.J. Green were to get traded to the Packers, is all forgiven with the Packers fan base?
I mean, it depends on what they give him up.
The rest
Maybe
of
they
the
give up-
draft was a total train wreck,
They give up their
man.
fullback that they drafted in the third round.
They drafted two fullbacks, second and third round, man.
So A.J. Dillon could be considered that too.
Right.
Like, we're not drafting A.J. Dillon today in the top 3 rounds, right? Even though he was a second round pick.
Maybe.
No.
We'll see.
Oh, you better not, Tags. I will make so much fun of you.
It's okay. All right, so it's back on my pick. T. Higgins, I dig the pick. He's right around this range where I think he should go. And yes, I want to ask you guys though. Let's pretend for a second that A.J. Green does get traded. Where does T. Higgins move up to for you guys? Does he move up to? Would you take him ahead of someone like Justin Jefferson?
No, not me.
No, he would be in my top 5 for sure. I think he would slide in as that 5th wide receiver, probably above
Like Pittman
Jalen
and Mims
Reagor.
territory.
I would probably have
a little bit behind Mims, right ahead of Reagor for me.
Yeah. I would switch him.
Probably still behind Reagor too. So the same exact area he's being drafted in now, but a lot closer to that. He'd be in that tier.
Nice. All right, guys. So I talked to you guys about the fact that I tend to lean wide receiver when the talent's there, and the talent was there, and it's starting to dry up a little bit. There is still a first-round wide receiver on the board in Brandon Aiyuk. Unfortunately, I'm not going that route. I'm going to take the value that fell to me at running back here because I do believe he's going to have value this year and potentially more in case an injury should arise. Zach Moss, Buffalo running back.
Oh, yuck.
Buffalo's GM has already come out and said that he's going to take over that Frank Gore role, including goal line duties. And if you look last year, Frank Gore had 11 or 12 carries inside the 5-yard line. Josh Allen had 6, and Devin Singletary had 2. So it's clear that Devin Singletary's value took a massive hit when they took Zach Moss. Zach Moss was my number 4 running back in this draft. Now, I want to be clear when I want to say that he was my number 4, but I understood there were injury concerns, and I figured that he would fall a little bit because of that. Still, Buffalo took him with some equity, and they clearly like the player. So when he's healthy, he's good. And if something were to happen to Devin Singletary, all of a sudden Zach Moss is going to be a high-end RB2, maybe low-end RB1, depending on how that offense looks this year. But Zach Moss in the middle of the second round, I'm down with it.
Frank Gore was the RB47 last year. He played all 16 games, Tags.
Look over the beginning of the season before he got hurt.
Probably not very good. Let me see.
If you look through weeks 1 through 10, he was a top 30 running back.
Was he really? Frank Gore?
Yeah,
top
it wasn't
40, top 40.
It wasn't until
He was number 40 in week 9.
It wasn't until later in the season where Devin Singletary took over. So all the way up until I think week 12, it looks like Frank Gore was getting a lot of touches, and then they all of a sudden just erased him from the offense because he didn't have it. And that's what
Zach
I'm saying.
Moss
So Moss
is better
could be
than Frank Gore at this stage.
Yeah,
You're right.
especially at this stage in their career. But but Zach Moss is like a guy that he's going to get. I would anticipate he's going to get 8 to 12 carries per game. He's not going to be heavily utilized in the passing game, which is fine. So he's going to give you that. Like Justin Jackson when Melvin Gordon was out, kind of like that type of role. But a guy that, again, if there's an injury that should arise, you're going to have a 15-plus touch running back that can do damage when he's on the field and healthy. I like him.
I'll tell you guys right now, I am going to be drafting Darington Evans in every single Dynasty league because when Derrick Henry leaves at the end of this year, Evans is going to be a workhorse in the top 3 running offense in football. He's going to be
Is that who you're going with here?
RB1 next year. I'm picking Darington Evans. And in fact, I would take him at 15th overall in the Dynasty league if I had to.
Yeah, I don't think you need to, but Yates, I'm curious, you're taking this one. He's obviously nothing like Derrick Henry, and part of that concerns me is like they didn't use Deion Lewis even when they paid him a crap ton of money in that offense. So it's like, is he the handcuff to Derrick Henry? Because he doesn't feel like it, because they'd have to change the offense to kind of fit Darington Evans' skill set, but he's also not going to be used on third downs. Like, he's not going to have value right out of the gate. So I'm just torn.
Who's going to play from Dalen Dawkins?
I like the play. No, Bobby. Don't confuse me. I love the player.
Okay,
I actually was really curious to see where he would go. I think he's a handcuff right now, but I'm curious as to what the Titans were thinking in terms of he complements Derrick Henry pretty well, is a compliment, but he's not necessarily the same style runner where it's like if something were to happen to Henry, do I anticipate them saying, Darington, it's your offense now. We're going to give you the ball 20. We're going to hand you the ball 20 times. That's not the player he is. So Yates, I'm really curious about your take here.
Yeah, I'm right in the same boat as you are, Tags, that this is definitely not going to be Darington Evans' offense if Derrick Henry goes down. Now, would he see an uptick? Of course, and I would highly expect the Titans to add another running back in free agency, as we see rosters get trimmed down in training camp, right? Like, I would expect to see them add someone who fits more of what Derrick Henry can do as a runner between the tackles. What Darington Evans is he's a home run threat. So he's going to get onto the field. And I mean, this guy is only 5'10", 203 pounds, right? So he's not going to be the player that you bring into that Derrick Henry role. Now, for long-term outlook, I kind of feel the same way, that if Derrick Henry does leave next year in free agency, I don't think they're going to rely completely on Darington Evans. I would expect them to add someone like a Najee Harris out of Alabama next year who kind of fits that mold of that, first and second down running back who can carry it between the tackles. So I don't think that Darington Evans necessarily has as high of a ceiling as some of us may project or may want to hope for, but he's still going to be involved. And I think that if Derrick Henry does get injured, then we're still going to see an uptick in his production.
I love him, man. I watch him run, and I see Miles Sanders. He's just at a smaller school, so nobody really realizes it. He's great, dude, and he's in a great running offense. I do think he will be the starting running back next year. We'll see. I'll be putting all my money, all the Darington Evans eggs in my basket.
Nice.
Who are you going with at 207, Yates?
Yeah, so we're at, pick number 19? I'm going to take the guy who's number 19 on my overall big board. That's Josh Kelly out of UCLA, now lands with the Los Angeles Chargers. Josh Kelly's going to walk in, and he is going to take over the Melvin Gordon role. Now, do I think that he's going to produce the same way that Melvin Gordon did? No, I'm not projecting that by any means. But I came away impressed with Josh Kelly on tape, and I think that he fits this offense really well. So now you're talking about a guy who can slide in and see a significant amount of work, because the Chargers were never going to go into the 2020 season and say that Austin Eckler was going to receive 200 carries and 100 plus targets, right? Justin Jackson is nothing, Bobby. Stop trying to make him something.
He's so good. He was Pro Football Focus's number 1 rated running back last year.
What?
Yeah, baby. Number one.
I don't even know if I believe that.
Watch the tape, dude. He was so good.
I really don't. This is not a question about Justin Jackson's talent level. It's a question of Justin Jackson actually being able to carry a significant amount of work.
Justin Jackson touched the ball 25 times per game in college, man. He was the workhorse in college.
In college. This is the NFL.
But that's who
There's
he
a
is,
huge
man.
difference.
That's who he is. He's a workhorse.
Justin Jackson
I love
is...
this.
He's going to beat out... Justin Jackson is going to beat out Joshua Kelly for the number 2 spot.
Justin Jackson is 198 pounds. We're talking about Darington Evans saying that he is never going to be the workhorse back because of his size. Justin Jackson is not going to be that guy who carries the ball 200 plus times at 6 foot, 198 pounds. So they brought in Josh Kelly, who is 5'11", 215 pounds off the top of my head. He's shown that he can carry it between the tackles in college. Josh Kelly, I have him down for, let me pull this up, 135 total carries, and Austin Eckler seeing 140. Justin Jackson only seeing 40 carries in 2020. So Justin Jackson's going to go away. They spent a 4th-round pick on Josh Kelly.
Man.
While I don't think that he's necessarily going to see 200 targets right out of the gate, or 200 carries out of the gate, I think he's an excellent back for this system.
I'd be really sad if that happened. It's definitely a possibility, though. I'm looking on mockdraftable.com. Athletic comp number 3 for Josh Kelly is Lamar Jackson. Same build, same athleticism. That'd be nice. It's same type of player, too. I don't know if he's that good, but this is a good landing spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's touches to be had because they're not going to have an Austin Eckler 20 touches a game. They just don't do that.
Yeah. I don't mind the pick whatsoever. I just had to throw in Justin Jackson's name. Sorry for riling you up, Yates. All right, Tags, you're up at 208, the 20th overall pick in Dynasty rookie drafts.
All right, so I'm going to ask Yates here because he's the name guy, because I don't listen to commentary while I'm watching college film, and I also was doing a live stream during the first round of the draft, so I didn't get to hear his name even called. Is it Brandon Aiyuk or Brandon Aiyuk?
Brandon Aiyuk.
Brandon Aiyuk. So I was saying it right. I just wanted to make sure.
You were. I wasn't. John corrected me on it after the podcast 2 days ago. He was like, dude, you need to stop butchering this name. And he gave me like 5 others, too.
Yeah, that definitely happens. But no, I mean, when you're a wide receiver drafted in the first round, again, you're going to get opportunity. I really don't like the landing spot, and I've kind of gone through this, and I wanted to give some stats on the air. Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball 20-plus yards in the air just 6.5% of the time last year. That was easily the lowest in the NFL. No other quarterback was under, I think, 8.5%. So he really didn't take shots deep. Now, could it be because of the personnel that was on the field? Absolutely, sure. I was not a big Aiyuk fan even coming into the draft. He was a really difficult evaluation for me. I didn't really understand. I didn't know how he fit in. I felt like the Packers could have used a player like him, but trading up for him, the 49ers clearly have a role for him in this offense. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to take him here towards the end of the second round. I feel like the value is just too good to pass up.
He's the best run after catch guy that was drafted in this class. And the San
I
Francisco
disagree with
49ers
that.
had the
CeeDee
best
Lamb
run
is
after
pretty
catch.
dang good after the catch.
So CeeDee Lamb's really good after the catch. He's not Brandon Aiyuk. I don't think so, at least. I mean, that's his calling card. But what I'm saying is they got Kittle, the best run after catch tight end in football. They've got Deebo Samuel, top 5 run after catch wide receiver. I mean, he's basically a running back playing wide receiver. And then they go out and get Aiyuk. It works perfectly for their scheme. I like the fit.
I'm happy with the pick. I mean, where he fell to. I have him at number 16 on my overall rankings. I'm not a huge fan, but if he falls to me, I'll take him.
I'm taking major upside guy at 209, pick 21, Laviska Shenault Jr. I don't know what he does this year. It's just like T. Higgins. I'm going to plug him on my bench, wait a year, and then see who he is. He's coming off the injury as well, but he's got a ton of upside. Yates, is that who you were about to pick?
No, I have Laviska down my board because of the injury concerns. And it was the same with Zach Moss. I totally get it. I totally get the pick and for the upside, especially here at the end of the second round. Totally get it, but I had him a little bit further down my board.
All right, well, let's move on to number 210 then. Who do you have, Yates?
It's between 2 guys, both wide receivers. One drafted by Baltimore, one drafted by Las Vegas. I'm going to go with Las Vegas. I'm going to go Bryan Edwards here. I think that Bryan Edwards sees the field immediately. Of course, if he's healthy, which was a big concern with him this pre-draft process. Assuming he's healthy, he's going to see the field right away. He'll be that starting X receiver in this offense. Bryan Edwards is extremely quick, twitchy, has excellent release off the line of scrimmage. So I think he's going to get open quickly underneath. You have Henry Ruggs kind of moving into, well, apparently the Antonio Brown role, but I think he's going to be used, in a field stretching capacity, and then of course being able to create after the catch. But Bryan Edwards is a big body, has some of the best hands in this entire class. He can be a red zone threat as well, which is something that we heard them talk about. Mike Mayock on the broadcast at the Combine was talking about how, we aren't moving on from Derek Carr because we were a terrible red zone offense, right? Like we just didn't give him the weapons that he needed. Bryan Edwards is that weapon, can go and play above the rim. So I'll take him here, and I think he can make an immediate impact.
I can't wait to see Derek Carr with an actual offensive line and actual decent weapons. He's not bad, guys.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Tags disagrees. Tags
He's
is gonna
mad.
lose
He's
it.
he no he.
Is that, is that disappointed Tags again?
I never said he. Hold on a second. I want to say I never said he was bad. What I've said is that he has not progressed over his career. He hasn't gotten better. He's stunted in his growth, and I haven't seen any growth out of him. And that's why I think he's just an average quarterback.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think he's an average quarterback. Yeah, I think he's about 15th best quarterback in the NFL, and I think most people have him down around 22, 23. So I'm just excited to see who he can finally be. I don't think he's ever going to win a Super Bowl, but I'm rooting for him. I'd like to see him with some weapons. So, Tags, you got your last pick in the second round here, 211. Don't take my guy.
I'm going to take another value at running back. I'm going to go with Anthony Mcfarland Jr.
No, come on,
Yep.
man. You got to snipe me on my last pick?
I actually feel like he's a Chris Thompson type player where he should be getting 8 to 10 touches per game. The Steelers may view him as something more than that, but that's where I think that he belongs. And knowing that James Conner has dealt with injuries, I think they're going to cut back some of that big workload and give some to McFarland. This is the death sentence for Jalen Samuels. He's kind of gone.
Yeah, big jerk.
McFarland in that offense with Ben Roethlisberger, it's going to be a lot more potent than it was last year. And I think that it's still weighing on people's minds. I think that if Roethlisberger had played last year, I think you'd see guys like Deontay Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster going a lot higher than they are. But it's a recency bias thing. So Anthony McFarland Jr., a potential to move into a starting job if something were to happen to James Conner. But I also happen to think that he's going to have a role right out of the gate.
I'm taking another third down running back at 212. Antonio Gibson, running back / wide receiver for Washington.
Yeah, I get the pick here. I'm really confused as to how they envision him actually playing in this offense, and especially because they have 9 other or 10 other running backs on this roster currently. So I'm confused by the pick from their perspective, right? I'm not confused by Bobby picking him here. I'm confused from Washington selecting him and just how they're going to utilize him. I think he's going to, but I mean, Antonio Gibson, from the player perspective, he's electric, man. You just get the ball in his hands and let him create. So he can be that spark plug for a dynasty roster as, your wide receiver 3 or 4.
All right, guys. Sorry, I'm looking at Mason Rudolph stats compared to Big Ben. I don't know why.
Great.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't be doing that during the podcast, but I was just curious. They were virtually the same player the last time that Big Ben played. No big deal. It's not like Big Ben's just going to go out there and throw 600 passes again. I'm sure he is, but he's going to be terrible when he does it. Everyone expecting him to come back and be awesome. He was terrible 2 years ago, guys. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to blitz through a third round. No analysis, just the picks. Yates, you're first. 3-1. Who are you taking?
Devin Duvernay, Baltimore wide receiver.
All right, Tags, you're up.
All right, I'm going to go Cole Kmet, tight end, Bears.
All right, I'll go KJ Hamler at 3-3. Back to you, Yates.
Antonio Gandy, Golden, Washington.
Ooh, interesting. All right, Yates, or Tags, back to you.
All right, Quintez Cephas, my dude.
All right, I'll go Justin Herbert at 3-6.
I'm going to go LaMichael Pirine, New York Jets.
I like that pick. Good one, man. All right, so that was 3-7. Back to you, Tags. Is this where A.J. Dillon comes off the board?
No, Van Jefferson, Rams wide receiver.
Van Jefferson? Okay.
Yep.
I will go Tyler Johnson, wide receiver, Tampa Bay, at 3-9. To you, Yates.
Oh, jeez. I'll go KJ Hill, Los Angeles Chargers.
Okay. Tags, you got one more pick, man.
Can't believe I'm doing this, but he fell far enough. Chase Claypool.
Ooh, okay. All right, I'll go. Ooh, man, do I want to do this? Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going Jalen Hurts at 3-12. You know what? We have time for another round. You want to go another lightning round, guys?
Sure.
I'm down with whatever.
All right, Yates, it's your pick, buddy.
Oh, well, I shouldn't have said that if I wasn't prepared. I'll go with... No, I don't want to do that. DJ Dallas, Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, man, this is the only reason I wanted to have a fourth round is so I could pick DJ Dallas. You kidding me?
Oh, man, that's funny. All right, I'm going to go Eno Benjamin.
Good pick. I'll do A.J. Dillon. Whatever. Yates.
I'll go Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah,
no,
you big
I was
jerk,
trying to wait.
Man. Come on. Why do you guys keep sniping me? All right, Tags, don't do it.
All right, Lynn Bowden.
You guys keep sniping me. This is not fun. I'll go Adam Troutman, tight end out of the Saints. I think we got 2 picks each left. Who are you going with, Yates?
I will
It's
go...
getting ugly.
It's drying up real quick. I'm going to bet with the upside here. Savon Ahmed, a San Francisco 49ers running back, signed in UDFA.
All right, I will take Devin Asiasi, tight end, New Orleans.
Yeah. I'll go Jordan Love. I went with both of the Packers guys here, guys. Yates, last pick, man. 4-10.
My last pick, I'll go James Prochet.
I knew you
Actually,
were.
no. Sorry. I'm gonna go Thaddeus Moss. I haven't drafted a tight end. I'll do a tight end.
UDFA.
Thaddeus Moss,
All
Washington.
Right.
Yep.
And I'll take Albert Bunam.
Nailed it.
Wow, pretty good. I wasn't going to draft him. No, I wasn't going to draft him not because of his name. Wasn't going to draft him because I want Gabriel Davis, wide receiver out of Buffalo, with my last pick. Anyone else you guys like? Like, if you're in the 5th round, anyone that you would be excited to draft, Tags?
Excited to draft. I mean, Dalton Keene is the other tight end from New England that Bill Belichick had talked about, the fact that he's excited about his versatility that he brings. Jordan Love, if you need a quarterback, 3 years from now, maybe he pans out. Gabriel Davis, another one. And Darnell Mooney. I mean, Yates, what do you feel about that? Do you think he's going to start in the Taylor Gabriel role, or do you think that Riley Ridley is going to be the starter?
No, I think it'll be Darnell Mooney. I think he'll at least compete for it. I don't know if it's going to equate to a ton of fantasy impact, but I think he'll see the field. One guy that I'll mention here is Adrian Killins, Jr. out of UCF. Excuse me. He lands with the Philadelphia Eagles and that as a running back. He's 5'6", like 170 pounds. Like, he's not a big guy at all, but the Eagles have shown that they want to use UDFAs. They don't at the running back position. Sure. They don't mind it with Josh Adams and Corey Clement. I think he can fit that Darren Sproles role.
The one guy I'll be targeting late in drafts, I'm going to get him everywhere, is Jeff Thomas. He landed with the Patriots. You guys let them have this awesome slot receiver. Now, he's been in a lot of off-the-field issues, and if that doesn't happen, I think that he's going to be the starting slot for the Patriots for years to come. I'm really excited about this landing spot. So, guys, that's all for today's show. Yates, Tags, this was a lot of fun, except for when you guys sniped me over and over and over again.
It happens.
Yep. All right, guys. Have a great week. Everyone, thank you for listening. For Kyle Yates and Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Enjoy your football.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Make sure to check out our featured videos as well. Also, make sure to click that red subscribe button to get notified when we post videos in the future.